My name is Elsa Williams, 42 years old, and I committed the worst mistake a mother could make. I deliberately skipped my youngest son Tyler's 18th birthday to teach him a lesson about responsibility while celebrating his older brother Jordan's achievements instead. I thought tough love would finally wake Tyler up. Instead, it created a wound so deep he simply walked away from our family. Before I tell you how I lost my son forever, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe to hear more stories about family relationships that changed lives. I never planned to be a single mother. When I married Mark Williams, we had dreams of growing old together, watching our children graduate, get married, and bring grandchildren into our lives. We were happy in our suburban Connecticut home with our two boys, Jordan and Tyler. Mark was an architectural designer with an artist's eye and creative soul. I was a civil engineer with a pragmatic mind and detailed approach to life. Somehow, our differences balanced each other perfectly. Mark always said Tyler was just like him. Even as a little boy, Tyler would spend hours drawing, creating imaginary worlds, and seeing beauty in things most people overlooked. Jordan, our firstborn, took after me. Organized, practical, and academically driven. Mark and I agreed that we had somehow split ourselves perfectly between our two sons. When Tyler was 8 and Jordan was 11, our lives shattered. Mark died in a car accident driving home from a client meeting during a thunderstorm. I still remember the police officers at my door, the sound of rain against the windows, and the impossible task of telling my children their father wasn't coming home. The grief was overwhelming, but I didn't have time to fall apart. I had two boys who needed me. Funeral arrangements, insurance papers, mortgage payments, and school meetings all demanded my attention. I put my emotions in a box and focused on survival. Looking back, I can see how Mark's death changed me. I became obsessed with security and stability. My engineering mindset took over everything in my life, including how I viewed my son's futures. Security meant financial stability. Success meant traditional careers with steady paychecks. Jordan adapted to our new reality by becoming even more focused on achievement. He threw himself into school, excelling in math and science. He joined clubs, volunteered at the hospital, and set his sights on becoming a doctor. I was so proud of how he stepped up, sometimes acting more like a partner than a son, in helping me keep our family going. Tyler responded differently. He retreated into his art, spending hours in his room drawing or learning digital design on the ancient desktop computer we had. At first, I indulged this as grief therapy. Mark had always encouraged Tyler's creative side, spending weekends teaching him to sketch or taking him to art museums in New York. With Mark gone, I thought Tyler needed this connection to his father. But as months turned into years, I grew increasingly concerned about Tyler's future. I still remember the day when 12-year-old Tyler proudly showed me a digital character he'd designed for a game. He had stayed up until midnight working on it, his eyes bright with excitement. "Mom, look what I made. Mr. Patterson says I have real talent. He says I could be a game designer someday." Instead of celebrating his achievement, I frowned. "That's nice, honey, but you should be working on your math homework. Your last test score was disappointing." The light dimmed in his eyes. "Dad would have liked it," he said quietly, turning away. That became our pattern. Tyler would share his latest creation, and I would redirect him toward what I considered practical pursuits. I wasn't trying to crush his spirit. I truly believed I was protecting him from future hardship. In my mind, I was being a responsible parent by steering him toward a secure future. As the boys entered their teen years, the differences between them became more pronounced. Jordan joined the science club, volunteered at the hospital, and maintained a perfect GPA. Tyler struggled with subjects that didn't interest him, though he excelled in art and computer classes. He started teaching himself programming so he could animate his designs. The financial realities of raising two boys on one income added to my anxiety. College wasn't far off, and I had been dipping into our savings more than I wanted to admit. Every time I paid a bill or looked at college tuition rates, my resolve strengthened. I couldn't afford to let Tyler chase impractical dreams. By the time Jordan was accepted to pre-med programs at 3 prestigious universities, I had developed a clear mental hierarchy of acceptable careers. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant, teacher. Anything artistic or creative was filed under hobby, not career. Game design wasn't even on my radar as a legitimate profession. When Tyler's high school art teacher called to tell me about a digital arts competition Tyler had won, I thanked her politely, but immediately changed the subject to his struggling grades in chemistry. I could hear the disappointment in her voice as she tried to explain that Tyler had genuine talent that deserved nurturing. "Many students would kill for his visual sensibility and technical skills," she said. The gaming industry is booming and designers with his abilities are in high demand. That's nice, I replied, but those jobs aren't stable. I want him to have a solid foundation first. He can always do that creative stuff on the side. The growing rift between Tyler and me became impossible to ignore. Family dinners became battlegrounds of tense silence or outright arguments. While I celebrated every one of Jordan's achievements, from his SAT scores to his internship acceptance, Tyler's accomplishments in digital art went unacknowledged in our home. I didn't see how Tyler watched me beam with pride at Jordan's acceptance letter, while his own National Digital Art Award certificate was tucked away in his desk drawer, unmentioned and uncelebrated. I didn't understand that in trying to protect one's son, I was slowly losing him. As Tyler's high school graduation approached, the tension in our house reached a breaking point. While his grades were mediocre in most subjects, he had straight A's in art and computer science. His art teacher and the technology department head had both approached me at parent-teacher conferences to discuss Tyler's exceptional talents, but I smiled politely and steered the conversation back to his other subjects. The real trouble began when college applications were due. Jordan was thriving in his second year of pre-med, making the dean's list and securing a prestigious research position. I expected Tyler to follow a similar path, perhaps in engineering or business, if medicine didn't interest him. When he announced over dinner that he didn't want to attend a traditional college, but instead wanted to pursue game design through a specialized program, I nearly choked on my pasta. Absolutely not, I said firmly. You need a real education, not some technical certificate in video games. Tyler's face flushed. It's not just a certificate, Mom. It's a bachelor's degree in interactive media and game design. It's a real program with internship placements at major studios. And then what? I countered. You spend your life making violent games for teenagers. That's not a career, Tyler. That's a hobby. You don't even know what game design involves, he shot back. You've never bothered to learn about what I do or what I care about. Jordan tried to intervene. Mom, the gaming industry is actually huge. Some of my friends at school have parents who work in tech and gaming. They make good money. I shot Jordan a look that silenced him immediately. We're not discussing this further, I said. Tyler, you'll apply to state schools with solid engineering or business programs. End of story. Tyler stormed from the table, and the sound of his bedroom door slamming echoed throughout our house. These scenes became increasingly common as graduation approached. Tyler retreated further into his room, emerging only for meals or school. The bright, creative child who used to share his drawings with me had been replaced by a sullen teenager who avoided eye contact. Meanwhile, Jordan continued to excel. When he secured an interview for a highly competitive summer internship at Massachusetts General Hospital's research department, I was ecstatic. I called everyone in the family to share the news, planned a special dinner, and even hung a congratulatory banner in the living room. That evening, as Jordan described his interview preparation, I noticed Tyler pushing food around his plate, his expression unreadable. This is what happens when you apply yourself, I said pointedly to Tyler. Your brother has worked hard, and now these opportunities are opening up for him. Tyler put down his fork and looked directly at me for the first time in weeks. I got a letter today too, he said quietly. Oh. I raised an eyebrow, assuming it was something school-related. I was accepted to the Digital Arts Academy in California, with a scholarship. The table fell silent. Jordan looked between us anxiously. That's awesome, Ty, he finally said, breaking the tension. A scholarship? That's huge. I carefully placed my napkin beside my plate. When exactly did you apply to this school, and with whose permission? Tyler's jaw tightened. I didn't know I needed permission to apply to college. Isn't that what you wanted? For me to continue my education? You know very well what I meant, I replied coldly. This discussion is closed. You're not moving across the country to study video games. Later that night, I found the acceptance letter in Tyler's backpack. The scholarship covered nearly half the tuition, but the remaining costs plus living expenses in California were still substantial. I confronted him immediately, waving the letter in his face. How exactly were you planning to pay for this? Did you think about housing, food, transportation? Or were you expecting me to fund this little fantasy? Tyler snatched the letter back. I've been saving from my job at the computer store, and I thought maybe, just maybe, you might be proud of me for once, for getting in, for earning a scholarship. But I guess that's only for Jordan, right? Don't you dare bring your brother into this, I snapped. This isn't about Jordan. This is about your future, and I'm not spending my hard-earned money on a degree that won't lead anywhere. As I turned to leave his room, I delivered my ultimatum. You can go to State University for a proper degree, or you're on your own financially. Your choice. The following weeks were a cold war in our house. Tyler stopped speaking to me entirely, communicating only when absolutely necessary. I noticed he picked up extra shifts at his part-time job, coming home late and heading straight to his room. My friends tried to counsel me. Some supported my stance, agreeing that art school seemed risky in today's economy, but my closest friend Sarah, who had known the boys since they were little, urged me to reconsider. "Elsa, you're going to lose him," she warned over coffee. "Tyler's talented in a way that's different from Jordan, but no less valuable. The world needs artists and creators just as much as it needs doctors." "The world might need them, but they don't pay their bills," I replied stubbornly. "I'm doing what's best for him." Sarah shook her head sadly. "Are you? Or are you just trying to make him into someone he's not?" I dismissed her concerns, convinced of my rightness. In my mind, I was the responsible parent making the tough decisions that Tyler would thank me for later. As May turned to June, two significant dates approached: Jordan's return from his successful internship interview and Tyler's 18th birthday. They fell on the same weekend, and I made a calculated decision that I would come to regret for years. I decided that Jordan's accomplishment would be celebrated while Tyler's birthday would be deliberately ignored. In my warped thinking, this would be the wake-up call Tyler needed to get serious about his future. I planned a welcome-home dinner for Jordan, complete with his favorite foods and a small family gathering. I mentioned the plans repeatedly in front of Tyler while making no acknowledgement of his upcoming birthday. Each time I did this, I saw a flicker of hurt in his eyes before his expression hardened into practiced indifference. The night before the fateful weekend, I overheard the boys talking in Jordan's room. "It's messed up, Ty," Jordan was saying. "I told Mom I don't need a big dinner. It's your birthday, for crying out loud." "It doesn't matter," Tyler replied, his voice flat. "I'm used to it." "No, it's not right. You shouldn't be used to feeling invisible. Have you shown Mom your portfolio? The stuff you've been working on is seriously impressive." "I've tried. She doesn't care. To her, I'll always be the disappointment and you'll always be the golden child." "That's not true," Jordan protested weakly. "Isn't it? When was the last time she put anything I did on the refrigerator, or called Grandma to brag about me, or looked at me with anything but disappointment?" I should have knocked on the door right then. Should have gone in and hugged my son and told him I was sorry. Should have asked to see his portfolio and really looked at it with open eyes. But I didn't. I convinced myself this tough love approach was necessary, that Tyler needed to learn the world doesn't reward dreamers. I had no idea that by trying to wake him up, I was actually pushing him to walk away. June 15th. Tyler's 18th birthday dawned bright and clear. I remember every detail of that morning because it replays in my nightmares even now. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Tyler came downstairs, his hair still rumpled from sleep. There was a hesitant hopefulness in his eyes that made my heart clench, but I hardened myself against it. He lingered by the counter, clearly waiting for me to acknowledge the day. "Morning," I said neutrally, not looking up from the newspaper. "There's cereal in the pantry." He stood there a moment longer, the silence stretching uncomfortably between us. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Do you know what day it is?" he asked, his voice carefully controlled. I looked up then, meeting his gaze with a deliberate coldness that makes me ashamed to remember. "I didn't forget, Tyler. I just don't see anything to celebrate about a son who refuses to take his future seriously." The hurt that flashed across his face was so raw, so deep, that for a moment I almost broke character. But then, just as quickly, a mask of indifference slipped over his features. Something in his eyes changed in that moment, something that I wouldn't understand until it was too late. He simply nodded, took an apple from the fruit bowl, and went back upstairs without another word. Later that afternoon, I busied myself preparing for Jordan's return. I hung welcome home streamers in the living room, prepared his favorite lasagna, and even baked chocolate chip cookies from scratch. All of this I did loudly, visibly, making sure Tyler knew exactly what I was doing. When Jordan arrived around 4 o'clock, the contrast in how I greeted my sons could not have been more stark. I hugged Jordan tightly, peppering him with questions about his interview and telling him repeatedly how proud I was. Tyler stood awkwardly in the hallway, hands shoved in his pockets, before quietly retreating to his room. For dinner, I invited my sister and her husband, plus Jordan's godfather, all to celebrate Jordan's internship opportunity. I set the table with our good dishes, brought out wine glasses, and even put flowers in the center of the table. When everyone was seated, I called for Tyler to join us. He came downstairs slowly, his face a careful blank. He sat silently as I raised a toast to Jordan's bright future in medicine. No one mentioned his birthday, although I caught my sister giving me questioning looks throughout the meal. Jordan, to his credit, tried to redirect some attention to his brother. "Tyler's been doing some amazing digital artwork," he said during a lull in conversation. "You should see the character models he's designed. They're professional quality." Before Tyler could respond, I smoothly changed the subject. "Speaking of professional, Jordan, tell everyone about the doctors you'd be working with if you get this position." I didn't miss the way Tyler's shoulders slumped slightly or how he pushed his food around without eating much. Midway through the meal, Jordan attempted again. "Hey, isn't today a special day for someone else at this table?" he asked pointedly. I fixed him with a stern look. "We can discuss Tyler's situation later. This evening is about your achievement." Tyler placed his napkin beside his plate and stood quietly. "Excuse me," he said, his voice barely audible. "I'm not feeling well." As he left the table, an uncomfortable silence fell over the group. My brother-in-law frowned, looking between me and Tyler's retreating form. "Isn't it the kid's birthday?" he asked bluntly. "Robert." My sister hushed him, but the damage was done. "We're focusing on positive achievements tonight," I said firmly, serving dessert as if nothing was amiss. Later, after everyone had gone, Jordan confronted me in the kitchen as I washed dishes. "What was that, Mom?" he demanded. "How could you just ignore Tyler's birthday completely?" "You don't understand what I'm trying to do for him," I replied defensively. "Sometimes people need a reality check. Tyler needs to understand that the real world doesn't celebrate you just for existing. You get recognized for achievement and hard work." "Like the national design competition he won last year that you never even acknowledged," Jordan shot back. "Or the online tutorial series he created that has thousands of followers. Are those not achievements because they don't fit your narrow definition of success?" I turned away, unwilling to hear this. "Go check on your brother if you're so concerned, but remember who's the parent here." "Maybe you should remember who's the child," Jordan muttered as he left. "He's 18, not 40, and today of all days you made him feel worthless." That night, as the house settled into silence, I passed by Tyler's room and heard muffled sounds through the door. With a jolt, I realized he was crying. Not angry teenager crying, but deep, heartbroken sobs that he was trying to muffle with his pillow. For a brief moment, my resolve wavered. My hand even rose to knock on his door. But then I thought of his defiance, his refusal to follow the path I'd set out, and I convinced myself this pain was necessary. Sometimes lessons hurt. Sometimes tough love was the only language that got through. I walked away from his door, telling myself he would thank me someday when he had a stable career instead of chasing pipe dreams. In that moment, I couldn't have imagined that by morning, he would be gone. As I lay in bed that night, doubt crept in despite my best efforts to suppress it. The sound of my son crying on his birthday echoed in my mind. But I silenced the voice of doubt, replacing it with self-righteous conviction. This was a necessary lesson. Tyler would come around. He would see that I was right. I was so terribly, catastrophically wrong. I knew something was wrong the next morning when Tyler didn't come down for breakfast. Jordan and I sat at the kitchen table, the tension between us thick enough to cut. Usually, even when Tyler was angry with me, hunger would drive him downstairs eventually. "Have you seen your brother this morning?" I asked Jordan, trying to sound casual. Jordan shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "He's probably sleeping in, or avoiding you. Can't blame him." By noon, with still no sign of Tyler, I went upstairs and knocked on his door. When there was no answer, I pushed it open, expecting to find him with headphones on, lost in his digital world. The room was empty. The bed was made, which was unusual in itself. On the pillow lay a single piece of paper. With a growing sense of dread, I picked it up and read the brief note. "Now you can focus on the son you're actually proud of." My first reaction wasn't concern, but anger. How dare he be so dramatic? This was exactly the kind of immature behavior I was trying to correct. I stormed back downstairs, showing the note to Jordan. "Did you know about this? Where has he gone?" Jordan looked at the note, his expression unreadable. "No idea," he said flatly, but something in his tone made me suspect he wasn't being entirely truthful. "This is ridiculous," I fumed. "He's just trying to get attention." Jordan looked at me incredulously. "Are you serious right now? You deliberately ignored his 18th birthday to teach him some twisted lesson, and you're surprised he left. What did you think would happen, Mom?" "I thought he would realize he needs to grow up and start taking life seriously," I snapped. He'll be back when he gets hungry or needs money. But Tyler didn't come back that day, or the next. By the third day of silence, my anger was giving way to genuine worry. I called his workplace at the computer store only to learn he hadn't shown up for his shifts and they were planning to let him go. I called his few friends, but none claimed to know where he was. I even drove around town checking the library, the park where he sometimes sketched, and the local coffee shop he frequented. There was no sign of him. It was Jordan who finally broke the silence on the fourth day. He called me, he admitted reluctantly. He's safe. Where is he? I demanded. Tell him to come home right now. This has gone far enough. Jordan shook his head. He's staying with Mr. Alvarez and his family. His art teacher, why would he go there? I was genuinely bewildered. Because they value what he does, Jordan said simply. Because they see his talent as something to nurture, not crush. I grabbed my keys ready to drive over and bring Tyler home, but Jordan blocked my path. He doesn't want to see you, Mom. And legally he's 18 now. You can't force him to come home. That stopped me cold. The realization that my son was now an adult with the legal right to walk away from me was like a bucket of ice water. This is ridiculous, I sputtered. He's acting like a child. No, Jordan said quietly. He's finally standing up for himself. There's a difference. Over the next few weeks, a pattern emerged. Tyler would call or text Jordan but refused any direct contact with me. When I tried to exert the only leverage I thought I had by threatening to cut off his phone, he simply gave up the phone, getting a new number that he shared only with Jordan. Friends and family began to question my handling of the situation. My sister pulled me aside at Sunday dinner, concern etched on her face. Elsa, what's really going on with you and Tyler? Robert and I are worried. He's being dramatic, I insisted, though with less conviction than before. He needs to learn that actions have consequences. And what exactly was his action that deserved the consequence of being completely ignored on his birthday? She pressed. He refuses to pursue a practical education. I explained, hearing how inadequate it sounded even to my own ears. He wants to waste his time on video games and digital art instead of a real career. My sister studied me for a long moment. You know, Mark would have supported his artistic interests, she said gently. Tyler is so much like him. The mention of my late husband stung unexpectedly. Mark isn't here, I said sharply. I am, and I have to think about Tyler's future in the real world. As weeks stretched into a month, my anger slowly gave way to fear. This wasn't playing out as I had expected. Tyler showed no signs of returning home or conceding to my demands. Through Jordan, I learned he had picked up more hours at a different computer store and was saving money aggressively. The turning point came when I finally brought myself to visit his art teacher, Mr. Alvarez, at school. The academic year had ended, but he was running a summer program for gifted art students. I found him in the digital media lab supervising a small group of teenagers. Mrs. Williams, he greeted me formally. I've been expecting you. Is my son here? I asked, looking around the room. No, he's at work, but we should talk. He led me to a small office adjacent to the lab and closed the door. Tyler is staying with us temporarily, he confirmed. My wife and I have a spare room and he's contributing to household expenses. I want him to come home, I said stiffly. Mr. Alvarez sighed deeply. With all due respect, Mrs. Williams, I don't think that's going to happen right now. Tyler is deeply hurt. He's overreacting, I began, but the teacher cut me off. Do you have any idea how talented your son is? He asked, turning his computer monitor toward me. This is Tyler's digital portfolio. On the screen was a collection of digital artwork and animations that took my breath away. Character designs with incredible detail, landscapes that seemed to pulse with life, and short animated sequences that told stories without a single word. Tyler has been accepted to one of the most competitive digital arts programs in the country, Mr. Alvarez continued. His scholarship was based on extraordinary talent. The program has a 90% job placement rate with starting salaries comparable to engineering positions. I stared at the screen, seeing my son's work through new eyes. I had no idea, I whispered. That's the problem, Mrs. Williams. You never looked. His voice was kind but firm. Tyler has struggled with feeling worthless for years. He told me once that no matter what he created, it would never be good enough for you because it wasn't what you wanted him to be. The weight of those words crushed something in me. For the first time, I began to truly see what I had done. Where is he now? I asked, my voice small. He's working, saving money. Mr. Alvarez hesitated. He's planning to move to California early before the program starts. He's found a roommate situation near campus. California. The distance felt like a physical blow. He's really leaving. Mrs. Williams, he's already gone. The only question is whether you'll try to build a bridge before he's too far away to reach. I left the school in a daze. The images of Tyler's artwork burned into my mind. In the car, I broke down completely, great heaving sobs that seemed to come from some deep broken place inside me. What had I done? How had I failed to see what was right in front of me? The slow, horrible realization dawned that in my determination to shape Tyler into what I thought he should be, I had lost who he actually was. And now he was slipping away entirely, putting not just emotional, but physical distance between us. That night, I tried calling the number Jordan had for Tyler, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a tearful message asking him to call me, but deep down, I knew it was too little, too late. The damage had been done not just on his birthday, but over years of dismissal and conditional love. I was losing my son, and the most painful part was knowing I had no one to blame but myself. 3 months after Tyler walked out of our home, I was still grappling with the wreckage of our relationship. My initial anger had given way to a crushing guilt as I slowly came to terms with how deeply I had wounded my youngest son. Every attempt to contact him had been met with silence, or at best, brief formal responses through Jordan. "He's not ready to talk to you," Jordan would tell me after his weekly calls with his brother. "He needs time." But time was running out. Through Jordan, I learned that Tyler had saved enough money to move to California at the end of summer, well before his program officially started. He had found a part-time job at a game store near campus and would be sharing an apartment with another incoming student. My desperation grew as his departure date approached. I tried writing letters, sending emails, and even drove to Mr. Alvarez's house once, only to be gently but firmly turned away at the door. "He's not here, Mrs. Williams," the art teacher told me. "And even if he were, he's asked for space." "I just want to apologize," I pleaded. "I need him to know I was wrong." Mr. Alvarez regarded me with a mixture of sympathy and caution. "Perhaps you should consider why you need to apologize now. Is it for Tyler's benefit, or to ease your own conscience?" His words stung with truth. Was I trying to make amends for Tyler, or was I selfishly trying to alleviate my own guilt? The question haunted me as I drove home alone. Around this time, my late husband's brother David came to visit. David had always been close to both boys, but especially to Tyler. They shared Mark's artistic temperament and creative way of seeing the world. After hearing about the situation, David asked to speak with me privately. "Elsa, you're making the same mistake my parents made with Mark," he said bluntly as we sat in the backyard. "What do you mean?" I asked defensively. "They tried to force Mark into business school because they thought architecture was too risky, too artistic. They nearly lost him completely." David leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Do you remember what Mark always said about parenting?" I closed my eyes, the memory washing over me. Mark sitting on our porch swing watching Tyler draw elaborate spaceships at age 7. "We have to love who our children are, not who we want them to be." "I've failed him completely, haven't I?" My voice broke. "Not completely," David said gently. "But you've been trying to reshape Tyler instead of nurturing who he already is. Mark saw Tyler's creative spirit as a gift. You've treated it like a problem to solve." That evening after David left, I found myself drawn to Tyler's room. I hadn't entered it since he left, leaving it frozen in time like some sort of shrine. Now I forced myself to really look at the space my son had inhabited. The walls were covered with his artwork, evolving from childish drawings to sophisticated digital prints. His bookshelf held graphic novels alongside technical manuals on animation and game design. His desk was still cluttered with sketch pads and reference materials. I sat at his computer and after a moment's hesitation turned it on. His password was still Mark's Dragon 123, a reference to the dragon character his father had helped him create when he was 9. Once inside, I found folders meticulously organized with years of his digital work. One folder was simply labeled Portfolio. Inside were his best pieces carefully curated and professionally presented. I clicked through them, truly seeing his talent for the first time. There were character designs, environmental concepts, animation sequences, and even small game demos. The technical skill was obvious even to my untrained eye, but it was the creativity and emotion in the work that brought tears to my eyes. Another folder caught my attention, For Dad. With trembling fingers, I opened it to find a half-finished animation. It showed a young boy and his father drawing together, the images gradually morphing into fantastic worlds that came to life around them. Though incomplete, the love and loss conveyed in the piece was overwhelming. Tyler had been creating a tribute to Mark, a father who had valued his talents when I had not. I broke down completely, then sobbing at his desk, surrounded by evidence of the son I had failed to see. How had I been so blind? How had I convinced myself that crushing his passion was an act of love? The next day, I did something I should have done years ago. I began researching game design and digital arts careers. I read industry reports, salary surveys, and job placement statistics. I watched documentaries about game development and read articles about digital artists working in everything from entertainment to medical visualization. What I discovered shattered my preconceptions entirely. The digital arts field was booming, with demand far outpacing supply for skilled designers. Top studios offered salaries and benefits comparable to engineering firms. The work required not just creativity, but technical expertise, problem-solving skills, and collaborative abilities. Everything I thought I knew was wrong. The practical path I had tried to force on Tyler wasn't the only route to stability and success. I had been operating on outdated assumptions and my own fears rather than facts. Armed with this new knowledge, I tried again to reach Tyler. I found his student email address on a form I'd signed months earlier and sent a carefully worded message. Tyler, I've been learning about game design and digital arts. I was wrong. Your path is valid and valuable. I'm so sorry for not seeing your gifts. Please give me a chance to apologize properly before you leave. Days passed with no response. Through Jordan, I learned Tyler had seen the email but wasn't ready to respond. My heart sank, but I understood. Trust once broken couldn't be repaired with a single apology. In a last desperate attempt to connect before he left for California, I drove to the computer store where he was working. I spotted him immediately helping a customer choose between graphics tablets. He was animated, knowledgeable, completely in his element as he explained the technical specifications and demonstrated the features. When the customer walked away, I approached hesitantly. Tyler. He turned, his expression instantly shuddering when he saw me. Mom, what are you doing here? I needed to see you before you leave, I said, my carefully prepared speech deserting me. Please, can we talk? I have customers waiting, he replied, his voice flat and distant. I'm at work. Just 5 minutes, I pleaded. Please, Tyler. His eyes, so like his father's, were cool and remote. I have nothing to say to you right now. Then just listen, I said quickly. I was wrong. About everything. Your art is extraordinary. Your path is valid. I should have supported you instead of trying to change you. Something flickered in his expression, but it was quickly suppressed. I have customers waiting, he repeated, turning away. In desperation, I placed an envelope on the counter. This is for you. Please read it when you have time. And Tyler, my voice broke. Happy belated birthday. I left before he could refuse the letter, walking quickly to my car, where I sat crying for nearly 20 minutes. The letter contained everything I wished I could say to his face, a full apology without excuses, an acknowledgement of his talents, and my unconditional blessing for his California plans. I had also enclosed a check to help with his expenses, expecting he would probably tear it up. That evening, Jordan confronted me after returning from dinner with Tyler. You ambushed him at work, he accused. That wasn't fair. I know, I admitted. I'm desperate, Jordan. He's leaving in 2 weeks and he won't speak to me. Jordan's expression softened slightly. You hurt him, Mom. Not just on his birthday, but for years. You made him feel like a failure his entire life. I never meant to, I defended weakly. I was trying to protect him, to ensure he had a stable future. By crushing everything that made him who he is. Jordan shook his head. And you wonder why I never told you I wanted to minor in music, why I hide my piano compositions from you? This new revelation hit me like a physical blow. You compose music since when? Since freshman year of college, Jordan said quietly. I love medicine, but I love music too. I just knew better than to tell you about the creative side of my life. The realization that I had alienated not just Tyler but Jordan as well with my rigid definitions of success was devastating. I failed you both, I whispered. No, Jordan said, his voice gentler. You've loved us both. You just got lost somewhere along the way, trying so hard to protect us that you stopped seeing us. The next day I called a therapist. It was long overdue. I needed to understand how I had gone so wrong, how I had twisted love into control and support into pressure. In our first session, the therapist asked me a question that cut to the heart of everything. Elsa, what were you most afraid would happen if Tyler pursued his artistic passions? The answer came immediately, surprising even me with its rawness. That he would struggle financially, that he would face rejection, that he would suffer. I paused, the deeper truth emerging, that I would lose him like I lost Mark. So you tried to control his path to prevent loss, she observed. And in doing so, you lost him anyway. The day before Tyler was set to leave for California, Jordan arranged a final meeting at a neutral location, a park where Mark used to take the boys on weekends. Tyler agreed, but made it clear this wasn't a reconciliation, just closure. I arrived early, sitting nervously on a bench near the pond. When Tyler appeared, my heart clenched. He looked thinner, older somehow, as if the past months had aged him beyond his years. He sat beside me, leaving a careful distance between us. Jordan said you wanted to talk, he said, his voice controlled. All my prepared speeches evaporated. I'm so sorry, Tyler, I said simply. I was wrong about everything. He nodded slightly but said nothing. Your art is beautiful, I continued. The portfolio I saw, the animation for your father, they're extraordinary. I should have seen that years ago. Why didn't you? He asked, the question hanging between us like a challenge. Because I was terrified, I admitted. After your father died, I became obsessed with security, with protecting you both from any kind of hardship. I convinced myself that only certain paths were safe. I was so focused on preventing pain that I became its cause. Tyler looked out over the pond, his profile so like Mark's it made my heart ache. You didn't miss one birthday, Mom, he said finally. You missed who I am. You missed everything about me. The truth of his words struck me with physical force. Yes, I whispered. I did, and I would give anything to go back and do it differently. I can't give you what you want, Tyler said, turning to face me. I can't pretend the last several years didn't happen. I can't suddenly trust that you see me now when you've been blind to me for so long. I know, I said, tears streaming down my face. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Tyler. I just want you to know that I see my mistakes clearly now, and that I'm proud of you even though I have no right to be. He was quiet for a long moment. I need to go my own way, he finally said. I need to find out who I am without you trying to reshape me. I understand, I managed, though the words felt like glass in my throat. California is a new start. You deserve that. As we stood to leave, I took a small gift from my purse wrapped in simple blue paper. This is for your birthday, 4 months late. You don't have to open it now. Tyler took it hesitantly. Thank you, he said formally, as if speaking to a distant acquaintance rather than his mother. We walked to the parking lot in silence. Before he got into his car, I spoke one last time. Tyler, I love you. Not who I wanted you to be. You. And I'm sorry it took losing you for me to realize that. He nodded once, his eyes meeting mine briefly. Goodbye, Mom, he said. And then he was gone, driving away toward a future that no longer included me. As I watched his car disappear, I understood with crushing clarity that some wounds can't be quickly healed. The damage I had done wasn't just about one skipped birthday, but about years of conditional love. Tyler was right to leave, right to protect himself from my controlling influence. The worst part was knowing that the wounds that had driven my son away were entirely self-inflicted. The day Tyler left for California was the loneliest of my life. Jordan helped him move, flying out to assist with settling into his new apartment, and then staying for a week to help him adjust. I remained behind in our suddenly empty house, wandering from room to room like a ghost. Tyler's bedroom remained untouched, the closet half empty where he'd taken some clothes but left others behind. On his desk sat the unwrapped birthday gift I'd given him at our last meeting. He had returned it without opening it, a silent rejection that spoke volumes about the state of our relationship. The small box contained a digital drawing tablet far nicer than the one he'd saved for years to buy himself. Alongside it was a handwritten letter expressing my belated support for his artistic journey and apologizing for years of dismissal. That he couldn't even bring himself to open it showed how deep the chasm between us had grown. In those first weeks after Tyler's departure, I threw myself into understanding the world I had so carelessly dismissed. I read books on digital art and game design, joined online forums for parents of creative children, and even took a basic digital drawing class at the community college. It was too late to change the past, but perhaps not too late to build a bridge toward some future relationship. 3 months after Tyler left, Jordan returned to medical school for his third year. Before leaving, he sat me down for a difficult conversation. "I need to tell you something, Mom," he said carefully. "I'm spending Christmas with Tyler this year." The news, while not entirely unexpected, still hurt. Christmas had always been a family time, the three of us maintaining traditions even after Mark's death. "I understand," I said, trying to hide my pain. "He needs you." "It's not just that," Jordan continued. "It's also about what I need. For years I've been caught in the middle, trying to balance your expectations with supporting my brother. I need some time with just Tyler without feeling guilty about you being alone." His honesty forced me to confront another uncomfortable truth. In my focus on shaping my son's futures, I had placed an unfair burden on Jordan, making him both my confidant and Tyler's protector. I had robbed him of the simple joy of just being a brother. "You're right," I admitted. "You shouldn't have to choose or feel guilty. Go be with Tyler. I'll be fine." As Jordan prepared to leave, he offered one small consolation. "He asks about you sometimes, you know. He doesn't admit it, but he wants to know how you're doing." "What do you tell him?" I asked. "The truth, that you're trying to change, that you regret what happened." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something, a tiny acknowledgement that I still existed in Tyler's world, even if only on the periphery. That fall, I found Tyler's social media accounts. He had blocked me directly, but his professional pages were public, showcasing his work and connecting with other designers. I didn't attempt to contact him through these channels, respecting his boundaries, but I followed his progress silently. What I saw both filled me with pride and deepened my regret. Tyler was flourishing in California. His work was being recognized by instructors and peers alike. He had joined a game development club and was contributing character designs to their project. In one photo, he stood proudly beside a display of his artwork at a student showcase, his smile more genuine than I had seen in years. For his 19th birthday, I sent a small package to his address, which Jordan had reluctantly provided. Inside was a book on advanced digital illustration techniques and a card expressing my pride in his accomplishments with no strings or expectations attached. 2 weeks later, the package was returned unopened, the word "refused" stamped across the label. The rejection stung, but I understood it. Trust once broken couldn't be repaired with gifts or belated interest. Actions had consequences, and I was living with mine. As promised, Jordan spent Christmas in California with Tyler. When he returned, he was careful about what he shared, respecting his brother's privacy. But he did show me one photo of the two of them on the beach, Tyler looking tanned and relaxed in the California sun, his arm around his brother's shoulders. "He's doing well, Mom," Jordan said gently. "His professors say he has exceptional talent. He's made friends. He seems happy." "Without me," I said softly. Jordan didn't deny it. He needed space to become himself without your judgment hanging over him. It was a hard truth, but one I needed to hear. My son was thriving without my presence in his life. My control hadn't been protection. It had been a cage he needed to escape to grow. In January, I had a breakthrough session with my therapist. We had been discussing my controlling tendencies and their roots in fear and grief. "I'd like to try something different today," she said. "Tell me about Jordan's experience growing up in your home." The question caught me off guard. Jordan, he was always the easy one, responsible, academically gifted, focused. And did he feel loved for who he was or for meeting your expectations? The question landed like a blow. I thought of Jordan hiding his music compositions, afraid to share his creative side, of the pressure I'd placed on him to be the successful son, of how I'd held him up as an example to Tyler, damaging both their relationship and his sense of self. "Oh God," I whispered. "I did the same thing to him, didn't I? Just in a different way." "Children who meet our expectations still suffer under conditional love," my therapist said gently. "They just suffer quietly, believing they must maintain perfection to maintain love." That evening, I called Jordan at school, something I rarely did midweek. "I'm sorry to bother you during study time," I began. "It's fine, Mom. Is everything okay?" "No," I said honestly. "I need to tell you something important." I love you, Jordan. Not because you're in medical school or get good grades or meet my expectations. I love you because you're you. And I'm sorry if I ever made you feel like my love was conditional on your achievements. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Mom, are you okay? His voice sounded strange, choked. I'm trying to be, I said. I'm trying to be better. And I wanted you to know that if you decided tomorrow to quit medicine and become a professional kazoo player, I would still love you just as much. He laughed then, a watery sound that suggested he might be crying. Well, I still want to be a doctor, but I have been thinking about continuing with music as more than just a hobby. Tell me about it, I said, and really listened as he shared his passion for composition for the way music and medicine both spoke to different parts of his soul. It was a small step toward healing one relationship. The other would take much longer if it could be healed at all. As winter turned to spring, I continued my therapy and my education about the creative fields I had so readily dismissed. I found an online group for parents of digital art students and gained perspective from others who had navigated the territory I had failed to understand. On Tyler's desk, I discovered an old birthday card he had made for me when he was 9. Inside, in careful, childish handwriting, it read, "Thanks for always believing in me." The words were a knife to my heart. When had that innocent trust turned to resentment and pain? When had my fear overtaken my ability to simply believe in my son? I placed the card on my nightstand, a daily reminder of what I had lost and what I hoped someday to rebuild. 2 years passed since the birthday that shattered our family. 2 years of therapy reflection and painful growth on my part. 2 years of Tyler building his new life in California, his contact with me limited to occasional third-hand news through Jordan. Through my therapy journey, I came to understand how deeply my grief over Mark's death had warped my perception of security and success. I had been so afraid of more loss that I had tried to control every variable, including my son's paths. In doing so, I had created exactly what I most feared, a profound loss that might never be repaired. Jordan graduated from his pre-med program and was accepted to medical school, a genuine achievement that I celebrated without making it a commentary on what made a worthy career. Our relationship had slowly healed as I demonstrated consistently over time that my love wasn't tied to his achievements. We could now talk about his music as easily as his medicine, and I had even attended a small recital where he performed some of his original compositions. Tyler's life continued to unfold at a distance. He had completed his second year at the Digital Arts Academy with distinction. Through Jordan, I learned he had secured a coveted internship at an indie game studio for the summer. His artwork had won several student competitions, and one of his character designs had been purchased by a mid-sized game company for an upcoming release. I followed his professional social media pages silently, proudly watching his talent bloom. Sometimes I would find myself studying his posts for hours, trying to piece together the life of the son who now lived as a stranger to me. In therapy, I worked on accepting that Tyler might never welcome me back into his life, that some damages can't be undone. I wrote him letters I never sent, expressing my pride, my regret, my unconditional love. The writing was for me a way to process my feelings without burdening him with expectations of forgiveness. It was Jordan who finally initiated a possible reconciliation. During one of his regular calls with Tyler, he mentioned that I had been in therapy for nearly 2 years, working specifically on my controlling tendencies and fear-based parenting. "She's really changed, Ty," Jordan told him. "Not just about your career choice, but fundamentally in how she sees parenting and success. She even came to my piano recital last month." According to Jordan, Tyler had listened silently, then simply asked, "Is she happier now?" The question surprised me when Jordan relayed it. Not, "Is she sorry?" or "Has she suffered enough?" but a genuine concern for my well-being despite everything. It was a generosity I hadn't earned. "Would you be open to talking to her?" Jordan had asked cautiously. "Maybe just a phone call to start." The fact that Tyler didn't immediately refuse gave me the first real hope in 2 years. "I'll think about it," he had said. 2 weeks later, my phone rang with an unfamiliar California number. My hands trembled so badly I almost couldn't answer. "Hello?" My voice sounded strange, breathless. "Mom, it's Tyler." The sound of his voice after so long made my eyes fill with tears. "Tyler," I managed. "Thank you for calling." The conversation that followed was stilted formal, both of us careful to stay on safe topics. He told me about the weather in California, about his classes, about a project he was working on. I told him about the garden I had planted, about a book I was reading. Neither of us mentioned the past or the pain that separated us. As the call wound down, I gathered my courage. Tyler, I was wrong. About everything. I can't undo the hurt I caused, but I want you to know how deeply sorry I am and how proud I am of what you've accomplished. There was a long silence on the other end. I'm still working through a lot of hurt, he finally said. I'm not ready to pretend everything is okay between us. I understand, I said quickly. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Tyler. I just needed you to hear the truth. After we hung up, I sat holding the phone for nearly an hour, replaying his voice in my mind. It wasn't a reconciliation, but it was a small crack in the wall between us, a tiny opening that might, with time and care, widen into something more. Over the following months, we established a tenuous new connection. Occasional texts, brief updates about major events. When he won a prestigious student design award, I sent a simple message. Congratulations, your work is extraordinary. He responded with a brief, thank you. But it was a small exchange not colored by the past. For his 21st birthday, I took a risk. After consulting with Jordan about what might be useful for Tyler's work, I sent him a high-end drawing tablet significantly better than the one he currently used. I included a card that simply said, no strings attached, just a tool for your amazing art. Love, Mom. I expected the package to be returned like the others. Instead, a week later, my phone rang with Tyler's number. I got the tablet, he said after our initial greetings. It's really nice. Thank you. You're welcome, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the joy flooding through me. Jordan helped me pick it out. I wanted you to have the best tools for your work. It's actually exactly what I needed, he admitted. The one I had was starting to glitch and I couldn't afford to replace it yet. I'm glad it's useful, I said, careful not to push for more than he was ready to give. But then, unprompted, Tyler continued. I'm working on concept art for a new game, he said, his voice warming slightly as he discussed his work. It's a fantasy world with these elemental creatures that transform based on their environment. That sounds fascinating, I replied, genuinely interested. How do you show the transformations? To my surprise, he launched into an explanation of his design process, his voice becoming animated as he described the technical challenges and creative solutions he was exploring. It was the first real conversation we'd had in years, centered on his passion rather than our pain. Before we hung up, Tyler hesitated, then added, If you want, I could send you some images of what I'm working on. I'd love that, I said, afraid that the emotion in my voice would frighten him away. 2 days later, an email arrived with several attachment files. Opening them, I was stunned by the beauty and complexity of his designs. Creatures that seemed alive, environments that drew the viewer in, character expressions that conveyed entire stories in a single image. I studied every detail before replying with specific observations and questions, being careful to show genuine interest without any hint of judgment. His response came quickly, answering my questions and expanding on his creative process. And so began a new fragile bridge between us, built on respect for his work, rather than expectations or demands. It wasn't the relationship we once had, but it was something authentic, a connection based on who Tyler actually was, not who I had tried to force him to be. 6 months after that first phone call, Tyler mentioned he would be traveling east for a gaming convention in New York, just a 2-hour drive from our home. I thought maybe, if you wanted, we could meet for coffee or something, he suggested tentatively. The offer left me speechless for a moment. I would love that, Tyler. Very much. We arranged to meet at a cafe near his convention hotel. I arrived 30 minutes early, too nervous to sit still at home. When I spotted him walking toward me, I barely recognized the confident young man approaching. At nearly 22, he had filled out his posture straight, his movements assured. He wore his hair longer than when he left home, and a simple silver earring caught the light. He looked like an artist like himself, like Mark. Our greeting was awkward, a hesitant hug that neither of us seemed to know how to navigate. We sat across from each other, two strangers connected by blood and separated by hurt, trying to find our way back to some new version of family. You look good, I said, meaning it. California agrees with you. It does, he nodded. I feel like I can breathe there, like I can be myself. The conversation flowed more easily than I had expected. He told me about his program, his internship, his plans after graduation. I shared updates about home, about Jordan, about my garden, and my therapy journey. Neither of us directly addressed the past, but it sat between us, acknowledged without being dwelled upon. As we prepared to leave, Tyler paused. "I'm not ready to come home," he said carefully, "but I'm glad we did this." "So am I replied, fighting back tears. "More than I can say. Maybe next time I'm on the East Coast." He left the sentence unfinished, a door slightly ajar rather than fully open. "I would like that very much," I said, understanding the gift he was offering and accepting its limitations. As I drove home alone, I reflected on the long journey that had brought us to this point. The wounds I had inflicted were deep and not fully healed. The relationship we once had was gone forever. But something new was possible, a connection based on mutual respect, rather than control on acceptance, rather than expectation. I had learned at terrible cost that love without acceptance isn't really love at all. That our children don't exist to fulfill our dreams or calm our fears. That sometimes the most loving act is to let go of our expectations and simply witness who they actually are. Some wounds are self-inflicted, created by our own blindness and fear. The scars of those wounds may never fully fade. But with time, with genuine change, and with the grace of those we've hurt, even the deepest wounds can begin to heal. Not into what was before, but into something new. Something honest. Something real. And sometimes that's enough. Where do we find the courage to admit when we've wounded those we love the most? How do we bear the knowledge that some damage can never be undone? These are questions I live with every day as I continue the long journey of rebuilding a relationship with my son. It's been nearly 3 years since that fateful birthday when I deliberately hurt Tyler to teach him a lesson. 3 years of painful growth, of facing hard truths about myself, and of learning what unconditional love actually means. The path has not been straight or easy, but it has been necessary. Tyler graduated from the Digital Arts Academy with honors last spring. I watched the ceremony via live stream, not yet invited to attend in person, but grateful for the technology that allowed me to witness his achievement from afar. The camera caught him briefly as he crossed the stage, confident and smiling, a world away from the wounded boy who left our home. Through our cautious reconnection, I've learned about the life he's built without me. He works as a concept artist at a respected game studio in San Francisco, sharing an apartment with 2 other designers. His career is flourishing, his talent recognized by industry peers. The path I once dismissed as impractical has brought him both creative fulfillment and financial stability. Our relationship exists now primarily through monthly video calls and regular text exchanges. We talk about his current projects, about Jordan's progress in medical school, about books and films and everyday life. We carefully navigate around the deeper wounds, not yet ready to fully excavate the past, but acknowledging its presence. Jordan has been the bridge between us, loving us both enough to help us find a way back to each other. He no longer hides his love of music from me, understanding that my pride in him isn't conditional on following a prescribed path. Last Christmas, he gave me a recording of his original compositions, a gift that would have been unimaginable in our previous family dynamic. The healing process has forced me to examine every aspect of my parenting and my beliefs about success. I've had to confront uncomfortable truths about how my fears shaped my behavior, how my grief over Mark's death twisted into control over my son's futures. I've had to learn painfully and belatedly that security comes not from following a predetermined path, but from developing resilience and self-knowledge. In my therapy sessions, I've come to understand that my attempts to protect Tyler actually communicated something very different to him, that he wasn't good enough as he was, that his natural gifts and interests were somehow deficient, that my love was contingent on him becoming someone else. No wonder he had to leave to find himself. The most profound lesson has been about acceptance, about loving the person in front of you, rather than the person you imagined or wanted them to be. Mark understood this intuitively. I had to learn it through loss. During our most recent video call, Tyler showed me concept art for a character in his studio's upcoming game, a warrior with an elaborate backstory and visual design that incorporated elements of loss and resilience. She's damaged but not defined by her scars. He explained, his face animated with creative passion. I wondered if there was a message in his creation, a reflection of our own story of damage and healing. But I didn't ask. I simply appreciated the art and the artist, grateful for the privilege of witnessing his talent. "I'm thinking of visiting for Thanksgiving," he said casually as our call was ending. "If that would be okay." The offer nearly took my breath away. "More than okay," I managed. "It would be wonderful." He nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Jordan thinks it's time, and maybe he's right. After we disconnected, I sat in silence, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, but of cautious hope. Thanksgiving would be difficult, laden with memories and unspoken hurt, but it would also be a new beginning, a step toward whatever form of family we might rebuild from the ashes of what was lost. I think often of that terrible birthday, of the lesson I thought I was teaching, and the one I actually learned. I thought tough love meant forcing Tyler to conform to my vision of success. In reality, the toughest love has been learning to let go of control, to trust in my son's path, even when it looked nothing like what I had imagined for him. Some wounds are self-inflicted, some damage cannot be undone. But with honesty, with genuine change, and with the grace of those we've hurt, healing becomes possible. Not a return to what was before, but the creation of something new, something true, something earned through pain and growth and the hard work of becoming better than we were. If you've ever wounded someone you love through control, disguised as protection, through fear, masquerading as wisdom, know that change is possible. Know that healing, while never guaranteed, becomes possible when we truly see and accept those we love for who they are, not who we need them to be. Have you ever had to let go of expectations for someone you love? Has a relationship in your life required rebuilding after deep hurt? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that even the deepest wounds can begin to heal with time and genuine change. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that love, real love, always begins with acceptance.